What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to a new live stream. Today we're going to continue our local first finance application build in React Native and WatermelonDB. So for the tech stack of this application, you're going to learn more about building applications with React Native and Expo router for the navigation, and we are using WatermelonDB for the local database. This is actually the focus of today's this build, to see how we can manage and how we can build a local first architecture in React Native. So today we're also introducing Supabase to this stack in order to handle authentication and also the data synchronization. Because yes, we have the data locally on the device, but if the application is deleted, the data might be lost. So we would like to synchronize it with the cloud when we have connection, so that the data is saved for later. This is the second part tutorial. In the first episode, we build the core of our application with Watermelon and Expo. We still have a couple of features and we learned about setting up Expo project. We build the UI, configure Watermelon, and build all the WatermelonDB features to create, read, update data in a local database. The application that we are building needs a little bit of context because most probably you don't know about it's not a very popular concept. I read recently a book, Profit First, and the whole concept of this Profit First, it's used for businesses and how you manage your finances in the business. So the idea is that you get revenue, and once you split it into multiple bank accounts. So you create like different buckets with specific percentages set ahead of time, and then once a month you check your revenue, and then you distribute it to the rest of the buckets, the small buckets, based on the percentage that you have set. So I'm using this, and I'm using like a spreadsheet to manage this, but I thought like maybe this could be an application that I would build to teach you about WatermelonDB local first, and also as a application that I could use to help save some time. So the features of the application will be allowing you to keep track of all your accounts and the percentages that you set, and will simplify the allocation process by calculating and giving you like the amount of distribution that you have to do for each account every time you do this. Usually you do the allocation twice a month, and yeah, I'm not gonna give you more details not to bore you. But yeah, here are some UI, and the goal for today is going to be adding some additional features because we still have one small table to handle in Watermelon, like one relationship there. We're gonna learn about data relationships. Then we're gonna get into the synchronization. We're gonna first set up a Supabase project. We're gonna set up authentication. And then we're gonna handle the synchronization of local database with Supabase, which if you already tried it, it's not very easy. So I expect a lot of bumps in the road, but I hope we will manage to do it. So let's see it together. So if you're ready, let's get started. All right. By the way, hello everyone who is joining us live. How are you doing today, guys? Here is the code, the application that we built previous week. The source code is available in the description. Also, if you follow the link to our notjust.dev page. And here, the first thing is you can manage accounts. You can add an account, for example, for salaries. Then you say like, this should be 20% of my revenue. And your at the moment is 20%, but your target, like what you would like it to be, is to be 25%. Then you click add account, and it adds it to the list. It automatically saves, updates in a local database. We can also then delete it. So on this page, we manage our accounts with their percentages. Then on allocation, this is where twice a month we're gonna go here, go to new allocation, say that yeah, we got 1,000 income. And then based on the percentages, it automatically calculates the distribution. Then we can press save, and this is going to be added at the top here with the date when it happened. So, as I said, the first step is going to be to actually display on this allocation page, not only the income, but also the distribution. So based on different accounts, where everything went. So that's what we're gonna do first. Let me find my diagram. Hello, Saurabh. Give me 1 second just to pop out the chat. Let me put it here. Hello, Tech with Taco. How are you doing today? Edwin, Joel, Saurav, Everton from Brazil. How's it going there in Brazil? Oh, Rogelio, as always. Thank you. When will React Native server actions will be introduced to React Native? I don't know. With Expo Router, you have server API endpoints. You can build that. And I cover them in one of our tutorials. So let's go ahead and build, see what changes we're going to have to make. So here is our diagram. And as I was saying, like after adding this allocation on the allocations page, I not only want to show the income, but I also want to show like the accounts in which this income was distributed. So for that reason, we actually need a new table, because at the moment we have account table, we have allocation, and I can show you in the code, in the source. For example, model, we have account with name, cap, tab, allocation, but we need one more that will make a connection between these two. An account allocation, which will link towards an account, towards an allocation that happened at a specific date, and then we'll show like what amount was at that time and what was the cap at that time, because the account can update, but this stuff I don't want to update. I want it always, it should be like a history. And here is where we will also cover some of the relationships, right? So for that, we are using WatermelonDB, and I decided that today we should have some music. What do you say? Let me know if it's not too loud. Maybe you're not even gonna hear it. So, first things first, for adding a new table in our database, what do we have to do? Actually, I would double check that in our documentation for maybe migrations. But in our case, I think we are database. Let me check that database. I believe that we are still in development, so we don't need like to set up any migration. So we can start with a table schema, right? So yes, let's start by defining the table schema for our new table called account allocation. So we're gonna start by opening the schema from our DB folder, and we're gonna add a new table schema here. The name of the table is going to be account allocations. I think it should be plural. So let's do account allocations. And what columns will that have? So first of all, most probably it's going to have also a created at, and most probably also an updated at. But about a created at and updated at, we're going to talk later when we do the synchronization. So let's leave it like this. If I check here, by the way, ID, the column ID is automatically added by we're gonna have an account ID which will reference one account, and then allocation ID referencing allocation. So for that, we're gonna have account ID of type. What should be the type of a relationship? I don't know, we're gonna check that in a second. It should match the type of my ID, which most probably is a string, and an ID to the allocation that it's part of. Type besides that, we're gonna also want to keep the amount and the current allocation percentage of this account in order to have like the history, so not to take the cap from account at the current time. So for that, we're gonna have name amount. Is it 1M amount or double M? Yes, it's 1M. So the amount should be a number. And what else? As I said, the cap, which is also name cap with a type number. And just to double check about the types of my relationships, I will look here, post type, post ID, type string. So yeah, most probably it's a string because the IDs are stored as strings. Okay, so that's our new table schema. Let me check the comments if the music is not too loud. Let me know, guys, if everything is fine. After we have a schema, we need to create a model that we will use in our code to interact with our database. We're gonna create, update it, and so on. So the model is going to be called account allocation. Now it's a singular. Let me check on the account, how did we do it? And maybe even I'm gonna copy everything from account and I'm gonna paste it in account allocation. First, we need to define the table name here, and it should be exactly the same as in the schema. So I'm gonna copy account allocations from here, paste it in the table. Then we need to specify the properties. For created at, I think I'm gonna look at the allocation, and it's a read-only date created at. So let me take it from here as the first property. And read-only should be imported from decorators, and also date should be imported from decorators. Now, what other properties we have here besides created at? Let's see. Created at account ID and allocation ID. Account ID. But let me check that in the documentation, how they are doing it. So, for example, they are creating the post. Many models related to one another. A post has many comments, and every comment belongs to a post. Every relation is double-sided. Exactly. So we see the post ID. No, this is for comments, but let me check on the comment itself. I'm thinking whether I need to define it as a field. Has post. Okay, custom queries, writer, advanced. Let's look at the defining the relations. So here, comments has an offer ID. Then with that, we create a relation on the offer. So that's going to be our relation. So again, let's take a break. Let's not cover that right away. Let's cover these two, the amount and cap, because these are simple fields, and the cap can also be like this. Field cap, which mentions the name in the database, and this is the name of a property of our account class. And the same thing for our amount. Amount on the database, amount here, and it's also a number. Okay, so for the field we are good. I can delete these two. About the relation, so a comment has an offer. In a similar way, let's import relation decorator from Watermelon. It connects with the table, and we need to specify the table. So let's start with account ID. It connects with accounts. So it connects with accounts based on the field account ID that we define here locally. And the name of this relation will be account. And we're going to have one more for allocations. Make sure not to have a typo, so even better go here, take the from table schema, take the name. We have a connection relation with allocation using the allocation ID property, and this is going to be called allocation. Okay. The first argument is the table name, and the second is the column name with a column. We can also add their immutable relation for extra protection if we don't want, for example, the class should also be changed. Let me wait. Yeah, account allocation. What I wanted to say is that we can also use a immutable relation if we don't want an account allocation to ever change the account that it relates to. And I think that's what we need. We don't want these relations to change. So I'm gonna change from a relation to a immutable relation, not to change what it points to. In some cases, you don't want that. If you want to change the ownership or the item that it points to, that it links with. Okay, so in this example, comment.offer will return a relational object. Okay, this is also lazy loaded. Observing, fetching, okay, assigning. To assign a new record to the relation. So we create, for example, a comment, and then we set a specific user using set in the create or update block. You can also set the ID if you only have the ID for the record to assign. Comment offer.id user ID. Okay, so knowing this, this is going to help us link the newly created account allocation with the right account and allocation. Okay, let's go ahead and make sure to add this newly created model in our database DB index. We need to import account allocation from our model account allocation, and we need to link it in our database model classes. Okay. Invalid type for allocation ID, string boolean number. Okay, but we updated it. Okay. So now after when we press save on creating an allocation, I want to go through all of these accounts and save also an account allocation. Isn't the music too loud? For me, it's too loud. So yeah, let's see how we create and save this allocation. We need to go to application, allocations, new, this is the page. And when we press save, at the moment what it's doing is it's creating a new allocation. But then we also need to, for each account, save a account allocation so that we later know how much went to which account. Hey, X Dreamland, how are you doing? Hello from Ajay is joining from Ivory Coast. Where is that? Code 8, hi notjust.dev. Godwin here from Nigeria. Hello, Godwin. You mentioned cleaning up the UI towards the end. Will that be in this stream or another? That's a good question. Like, I would really love to do that, but I'm not sure if that's very valuable. So the focus first is going to be to do the synchronization, which might take a bit of time because it's going to be interesting. For that, we also need to handle like user authentication, to have some screens to manage the account. So if we have time by the end of the tutorial, I'm also going to do some UI advanced because I really don't like how the UI is at this moment. But it's functional, so that's good. Perfect. So let's continue if we want to manage it. Allocations collection coming from database. I think in the database index, I should also do export const account allocation collection. Oh my god, it's getting so like the names are getting too long. So I need to probably do is going to be of account allocation type, and the name of a table is going to be from our schema account allocations. Okay, so now we are exporting this collection that we can later interact with. We need that in our new allocations new page here. Accounts are coming from here. So for each account, can we do some kind of a batch write or something like that? Or we just simply... Well, we're gonna have, let's start by doing this because I'm not really sure. Account allocation collection that should be imported. We need to create new account allocation. And this create, is it? Yeah, it's a promise. Why I'm not awaiting here? That's interesting. Let me double check the create. Create a new record. Database get, create. And then we do and we can get the new post. We can get the newly created allocation. So we're gonna need that because we need to assign it to the new account allocation. So const allocation equal await, and then we are creating this one. Now we need to let's take the first account. And work only with one account, and then if we have it ready with one account, we can multiply it for every account. So const accounts, I'm gonna take the one at position 0, and I'm gonna create a new allocation by linking this account with this allocation inside account allocation collection. We need to do that using new account allocation dot. First of all, we need dot set. Dot account dot set, right? Why is it type any? I know why, because in our model allocations, we did not, account allocations. We did not specify the type of this account. So I think it should be account or maybe account relation. No. I'm gonna cover the types in a second. Let's just see something in action. So I remember here in relations, we are using that set. So offer.set and the object. So account.set, and we are setting this account. Same thing. Should we call it item? And do item dot allocation, and this is also a relationship, so we can do set the newly created allocation. Now we need a couple of more fields. If we look at the account allocation, accounts, allocations, and then cap and amount. For cap, item.cap is going to be easy because we just copy it from the account cap. So this is going to be served simply as a history thing. And for item dot amount, that's going to be the income that the user received, which should be allocation income, allocation dot income, multiplied by account dot cap. So this is percentage wise, and probably even divided by 100. Yeah. So all fields are set. We are creating it. Probably we need to wait. And I hope to see something under profit. If I add here 1000, save. Possible unhandled rejection. Why? Fail to prepare query. SQL, no such table. Yeah, because we didn't run the migration. After doing schema changes, I think we need to increase the version of a schema to 3. And because we are in development, it simply removed everything. So I'm going to add here an account profit 10, 10, maybe another one. Tax 20, 20, and test 70, 70. Now if I go in allocation, create a new one, I can distribute something there. It shows here, but at this moment we don't know yet if it correctly received or saved the allocations under that, the account allocations under here. So what we can do is check the component that is rendering this one. So that component is on the allocation index, it's allocation list. So the allocation list has allocations, and then we have allocation list item, which is one of its property. At the moment it displays just the income. Well, here we're gonna need to do some improvements to this item. We're gonna have to add to wrap it in an observable so that we observe and fetch the allocation. We keep track of the changes and also keep track of the allocation dot wait, before I do that, let me do something else. Not sure where. On the home screen. Let me do here just a query to read all the posts, all the use effect. I want to read from database to see if it was saved correctly. I'm going to define an async function inline. You don't have to do this because later we're gonna improve it. We're gonna properly fetch it. Now I just need to test it. So const account allocations equal await account allocations collection dot query dot fetch dot query dot fetch, and let's do console log account allocation collection. If I do that, and maybe will I be able to do a JSON string? If I think I was not able to do it previous time, the JSON.stringify null and then 2 so that I can see it better. And it's not possible, but if I put it into some kind of an array, WatermelonDB result to array. I need result as array. Querying. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like this. If anyone knows how to easier console log them, let me know. But here we have the... Oh, I think I know how I should access it by... Let's do here JSON formatter, because I'm getting lost a bit there. Cache, table name, changes, database, collection. Oh boy, where is it? If I do fetch count, what's gonna be then? Oh, but I'm not... Oh, wait a second. I'm not console logging what I should. So account is 1, which is already good. And now if I'm gonna do fetch, it's going to have that... I see it already there, but let's put it here. Process. So we have array object raw, and the raw has account ID correct, allocation ID correct, amount 100, cap 10, which I think is correct because we created yes, the amount, because from 1000 10%, that's 100, created at an ID. Perfect. So that means that we are saving correctly the allocation for one account. Now we need to do it for all of them. So let's go back into the new. And what we need to do is, instead of doing it like this, we're going to have to map for all accounts. So accounts.map. For each account, I will do this. account allocation, create item. So for each account, yep, I'm gonna delete this one. And because we are mapping, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into a promise.all. We're gonna collect all the promises there, and here we're gonna simply await the execution of all of them. So it will go through all accounts. For each one, it will start creating the allocation, the relationship between allocation. And let's see if it's gonna work. Now if I do here 2000, it should be 3 accounts with 200, 400, and okay, save. Now if we go here and reload the application, let's see what data do we have. I expect to have 4 items in my database. Not like this. Look, here is 1400. If I'm gonna take the allocation ID here, it should be 5 of them. Okay. This is one with cap 70. If I scroll up, should be one 400 with cap 20, and another one with cap 200. Yeah. So all 3 were created, and this is from the previous one. And I think it correctly assigned to the right account and to the right allocation ID based on our diagram. So when saving one of these, we are linking to the allocation and to the account so that we can later display them here on the screen. So that's what I was saying. Now let's go back, and we no longer need to do this on the home screen. We don't have to fetch it manually because we are going to fetch it on the account list item, right? Not allocation list item. This is an allocation inside the list. This receives the allocation, and we need to subscribe to the allocation and also to the relations that they have. To do that, we're going to check how we did it for the account list item. Here we need a with observable. We subscribe to this account, and then we observe it, and we exported an enhanced one. So if you didn't check like the previous episode, we learned more about this with observables, but in order to make this allocation list item react to changes when something happens on the allocation, and also fetch them for one allocation, we want to fetch all the account allocations that are related to it. So to fetch that, we're gonna need the with observable. So that's going to be defined using with const in haste equal with observables from WatermelonDB. This with observables, the first one is going to be what property that we're gonna receive should trigger an update, and the property is going to be allocation like this. We're gonna receive allocation, and I think the second one is going to be setting up the observables. So we're gonna take this allocation object, location, and we are going to return a new set of properties where we do allocation dot observe. So this is already observed allocation. It will react to changes, but inside the with observables, this call is automatically added, and because it has the same name, I'm gonna remove it altogether. And also we're gonna do account allocations, which is going to be allocation dot something, but it's not ready yet. So let me just quickly comment it out. We're gonna come back to it. The last step is, instead of exporting default allocation, let me bring it up. we're gonna export default and enhance allocation list item like this. And let me just double check where the properties. Account list item, type account list item, account list item. So here we need to just specify that, hey, there is an allocation, something like this, just for the type. You don't have to do it if you're not using TypeScript. Okay, now it understands. So let's check if it still works. If I'm gonna reload the application, it still renders, but now it's also observing. So if somewhere in our part of application, we're gonna update something from here, it's going to automatically update from this component. This is the added benefit that we got by enhancing with an observable that we cannot see because I don't have like update yet, but it's there, it's ready. Another benefit is going to be that we can query the relations from our table, the data that points to this. So I'm going to check that from the documentation under the connecting component, under the relations. User observing offer comment.offer. Okay, but we need the other way around. Many to many. I don't need many to many. But I need the I think I need the associations. And why don't we have the documentation of WatermelonDB is not one of the best. That's the sad part. So here in relation, it doesn't show anything about associations where we do the opposite relation. Yes, we created the relation from account allocation to allocation, but now we need the other way around. For knowing one allocation, we want to get all of the account allocations. So I'm gonna look for our pages, probably in the schema here or in the model, because here in the model we have a post with comments, which is kind of similar. So many models relate to one another. A post has many comments and every comment belongs to one post. Every relation is double-sided. Define those allocations as so. So on the post, we just have associations. And on the comment we have, do we need this? Because we define it as a relation. Oh boy. Belongs to, has many. What's the difference of using relation here from a comment to a post compared to these associations? Or do we need to define both of them? That's not clear. So in the post we can define, okay, I think we need both of them because it says here has many and comments, you see? So using the children. Okay, I'm gonna see if we need these associations, but the children we definitely need. So let's go ahead under the model allocation, and we know that we are gonna have here children. So let's define these children. The table name of a children is going to be the one from account allocation table name. And it's going to be called account allocations and later we're going to define the type. That means that now one allocation has reference to its children account allocations. Going back to our allocation list item, we can observe them or fetch them or lazy load them by doing allocations dot account allocations. This is going to be another property that we're going to receive in our component from with observable. And we can specify that the type of it is going to be account allocation model, and it's going to be an array. Maybe we can extract the type at the top here. Type equal to this thing. And here we just say account list item. And account allocations. Let's just render them in a text, the length of it. Children decorator used for a table that's not has many. Okay, so most probably we need that has many. Okay, back to the model, to the allocation children. We need the has many association at the top here as a static field. So we are associating with comments with, I don't know, account allocations. Type has many. Foreign key is going to be allocation ID, because on the account allocation it's called allocation ID. But I'm not sure about the name. Type string is not assignable to type has many. What if it's like this? Okay, so like this it doesn't work, but like this it works. So it says 3 and here 1, so now it works. But I'm not sure, like, do we need to also on the other way? As it was described at the top here with associations. So from a comment belongs to, let's try to add it to our account allocation. At the top as a static associations, we are associating with allocations first as belong to, and the key is going to be account ID. A lot of duplication, like something in the schema, something here, something in the associations, like, and the same I'm gonna do for the accounts based on account ID, but here is allocation ID, allocation ID, accounts ID. Okay. Back to our allocation list item. Now that we have it, we can loop through them and render them below the container. So we have here header. Let's go ahead and add here another view, and inside it we're gonna go ahead and do account allocation.map item, and for every item we are going to render another view, and inside it we're gonna have at least the item dot name or amount. But it should be inside the text. So 200, 400, okay. Based on our UI, we wanted to display the account name and on the right, the amount. So account name, will we be able to take the account name from here? Because we can access .account .name. No, because it's not fetched. What would be if I do console log account allocation dot do we need another component, another enhanced component? I want to check at position 0 account. I'll do it like this. And in console log we have, okay, but can I, probably I should do dot fetch account dot fetch and await, but I will not be able to do await here. That's bad. So here, as we are doing like that observe, we need again, oh my god, it's achievable because you see the problem is that the account allocation does not have a name of account. So account allocation does not have a name of account. We need to fetch the account data and display the name. So one way would be to create a separate component for it and then enhance it as well. I think that's most probably what we're gonna do. But let me check with documentation if maybe there is a way. Let's verify comments. Maybe here, immutable, really, okay. Yeah, one deep is okay, but 2 levels, signing. Writer, maybe a reader, batch update, no. Okay, so for this small thing, we're gonna have to extract this to a separate component so that we can observe and fetch the details about that as well. So I'm gonna go ahead in my components, I'm gonna create a new file, account allocation item.tsx. Here, let's first define this. We're gonna receive an account allocation of type account allocation. Let's get this account allocation and render, I don't know, starting with the amount, dot amount. Now let's go ahead and import this account allocation in our allocation list item and render it here instead of our custom view. And we're gonna send here account allocation equal item. Let's import it. And now it also displays it. But here, because it's a separate component, what we can do is we can enhance this component. So let's define the enhance with observables. We are going to, well, the first one is going to be an array with properties that we need to look for, which is going to be account allocation. Then we're gonna get this account allocation, which is this type. And then we are going to return starting with account allocation itself. Now let's export the enhanced version. It works as well, but now we can do here, based on this, we can query the account. So account is going to be account allocation dot account. Right? So we're gonna receive it here as account, and we're gonna be able to render it in a text as account dot name. Okay, now we have a name. It was a bit overcomplicated for such a small thing, so in my belief, like, I'm gonna move types here. So let's go ahead and give it a bit of style because I want to display it on the same row. So let's go ahead and say flex direction row and justify content space between. Now the name is on the left, the amount is on the right. We can also put a $sign on the amount, profit this, tax this, and so on. Back in our account list item here on this view that wraps everything around, we can give a style so that we can add some gap property to have some spacing, 50. And padding vertical 50. Not 50, 5. Okay, something like that. And I don't need to display the length here in the header. Okay. So now if I go to the new allocation and say that, hey, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, save, it automatically adds it here at the top instantly with the distribution between all of them. Oh, that was more intense than I expected. But with this, I think we are done with these account allocations. Hopefully. Let's go ahead and do a git status. Look at how many changes we have done. Yeah, that's a lot. Git add, git commit -m account allocations. Okay, so moving on. Do JSON stringify then paste in formatter. Which formatter? Anakash is asking, how can I sync this data, this local data to online database? And that's going to be our next step. In the next step, what we want to do is, okay, we have this data, everything is tracked in a local WatermelonDB database, which behind the scenes is using SQLite. If we delete the application, we're gonna lose track of this data. Or if we try to access the same data from another account, we're not gonna have access to it. So everything is super local at the moment. Usually with this type of architecture, we also are synchronizing the data to some cloud provider, to a cloud database, so that it serves as first of all, as a backup or somewhere where you store the data if something happens, but also allows you to use to share data and to contribute to the data from different accounts or between multiple users. So that's going to be our goal in the next step. Edison, hello. You're starting to use React Native. Well, check out some tutorials on our channel. We have a lot of them. And actually, where is it? Guys, if you're new to this channel and if you are learning React Native, that's exactly what we do here. So we are building fun applications and I'm helping you advance as a React Native developer. So if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe. That would help us a lot and you're gonna get some really interesting React Native tutorials on your feed. So next steps, right? Oh boy, I'm a bit afraid of the next steps of the synchronization. There is not a lot of documentation out there. There is only one great post from on Supabase from Benedict. Shout out to Benedict. That showed like how you can do it. But what we have to do, like in a couple of words, is we have to duplicate or create the same schema in a production database for example, on Supabase, which is using Postgres. Then having the database schema, we're gonna have to define two methods for synchronizing. On the front end, it's not very complicated. Probably it's not gonna be the hardest part. But on the back end, we have to write manual like SQL code that will do the synchronization, that will take like the new objects that happened locally and write them there. Well, it's not super complicated. I'm gonna walk you through every single step. However, I believe it's going to be error prone. So we're gonna have to be super careful at details. And yeah, that's gonna be fun. But before we actually can do that, we're going to need some kind of authentication, because now that we have a remote database, imagine that your application is not going to be used only by one user. Unless that's the case, you can do it without authentication. But if your application is going to be used by many users, you want to protect user data. You want to synchronize with this device only the data that belongs to me and not data that belongs to others. Also, you need security in place so that my data can never overwrite someone else's data. So for that, we're gonna need some kind of authentication. So the application in a way will allow you to manage everything locally, but it will also say like, hey, if you want to save this data or use it on another device, you need to create an account and then we're gonna synchronize with the backend. That's, in my understanding, the way that we're gonna implement this synchronization with Supabase. So for that, let's go ahead and check out Supabase. Supabase is a great backend as a service tool. We are marketed as the Firebase open source Firebase alternative. Actually, this week we did a tutorial specifically on Supabase. That was fun, and they recently became GA, which means general available. So let's go ahead and open their documentation, and there is this getting started guys for Expo specifically. So let's scroll down until we see Expo React Native, and we're gonna just follow very lightly this documentation because I don't think I'm gonna actually do everything that is mentioned in this getting started guide. Let me just double check that. Yeah, there is a lot of things that we will not need, but if we go down here, the first step is going to be to create a new project on Supabase dashboard. Let's press dashboard. You can sign up and create an account by connecting with your GitHub account. We have a free tier, so you're gonna be good. I have a couple of production applications with them, and here on the dashboard, let's go ahead and create a new project. I select my organization. For the project name is going to be Profit First. Let's go ahead, type a strong password. Suggest me a strong password. Let me copy it, create a project. Make sure to copy this database password. You're gonna need it a bit later. I'm gonna write it down in some notes, but if you forget, I'm gonna show you how to reset it. Now, Supabase is setting up our project, and at the core, Supabase is a wrapper around a Postgres database. So all the power of Postgres we get here with Supabase, with way more additional benefits like authentication, edge functions, way to design our tables here on the homepage, so a lot more. So that shouldn't take a long time, but until that's happening, let's go ahead and now it's done. So right away we can go into the authentication and start signing up with users. Let's go back to their documentation, and for database schema, we don't need anything for now. Let's simply go until we see install additional dependencies. There are a lot of dependencies, but I'm gonna skip that last two, the React Native elements and the React Native URL polyfill. Elements because they just use two buttons that I'm going to replace with my own button, so I don't want a separate library for just two buttons. And React Native URL polyfill, if I'm not mistaken, it's already included in the Expo SDK. So hopefully it's also included in the SDK version that I'm using. So I'm gonna start from the async storage and copy the install command like this. Let's open up the terminal. Let's clear and let's paste the install command. As you can see, it's Supabase.js and React Native Async Storage. That's it. We need the React Native Async Storage to save our token. After that is done, we're gonna create a folder here called lib. Inside the lib, we're gonna create a supabase.ts where we're gonna create the client. So let me do it properly. Supabase. Let's go back to the documentation, and here they are showing how we can create a Supabase client. Let's copy this from here. Let's add it here. I will remove import React Native URL polyfill. As I said, this should be already polyfilled in the Expo SDK. And here we need to specify the Supabase URL and the Supabase public key. For that, we can use for that we can use environment variables, where we can right away inline write them here. So for Supabase URL, let's go to the dashboard, and we're gonna find it under the project settings. Under the API, there will be project URL. Let's copy it and let's add it here. And the anon key is also here. Under the project keys, anon or public. This is a public key and it's safe to share in your source code or as a text here in your source code, because the actual authorization is going to be done on the database layer. So only owners of data, if we set it up correctly, will be able to edit their data. So it's not any kind of admin key. The next key that you see here, service role, this one never included as raw text in your code. So now that we have this Supabase client, we are ready to call, for example, supabase.auth.signin. Let's do that by creating a new screen in our application. We need a new screen for the authentication, but the problem is that now under layout we are using the tab navigation. So the tab navigation is the root navigator, which is not very correct, because that means that the tabs at the bottom will always be visible, even when we just want to sign up. Or maybe we should do just a profile page here, which will display the login screen if you don't have a profile. What do you think? Look, another thing that we can do is, under the application, create a new folder in which we will move all the existing screens and folders. This one, we're gonna put it inside the brackets because we don't want it to affect our URL. We just want to group screens together. And let's call it, I don't know, tabs. Now let's take all of our screens, maybe without the index. Let's take all of our screens except index and move them to the tabs. Move. Now they are in the tabs, and we need a root layout, because the layout from the tabs is no longer the root layout, it's only the layout of a tab bar navigator. So let's do layout.tsx, and from the tabs layout, I don't think we need to do anything with exception to rename it to tabs layout. But now in the root layout, what I need to do is I need to say, hey, this is the root layout, and it should render a stack probably. Or I'm not even sure that I need a stack there. Do I even need a root layout? Probably not. Not yet. Layout children, too many screens define index. Too many screens define index? What? Yeah, because in the tabs, we need in the tabs, when we simply go to /tabs, Well, we don't need anything there. So I think in the tabs layout, we just don't need this anymore. I don't like where there is too much space at the bottom. And here, what's going on at the top? Locations, layout, stack. Accounts. It's not really correct. Let me try something. Let me try a layout .tsx where I simply return a slot instead of a default one. But because the default one has a safe area view, but if I return a slot, sorry for that. That's my bad English. Now it's going to work correctly. It's not going to add any extra spacings because the default one has a safe area view, but if we do a slot, it's not going to have anything. Okay. So now that we have this structure with all the screens under the tabs, and here in the layout, we don't have a tabs. That means that we can create a separate folder called off, where we're gonna keep our, for example, login screen. So login.tsx. Here under the login, we can go ahead and see what is the guide rendering. So in the guide from Supabase docs, there is the setup a login component. Let's copy everything we have here and bring it in our login screen. A lot of things will not be correct. For example, the way we import Supabase lib is going to be a bit different. Yeah, we need one more pair of dots because it's one more item up. And then from React Native elements, we don't have it, and we need to import the button from React Native and a text input from React Native as well. And we're going to remove these React Native elements. Now we need to check where we are rendering that button and input. For example, instead of this input for the email, we're going to render a text input. And the text input doesn't have a label, a left icon, but it has everything else. And the same for the password. Text input, it doesn't have a password and a left icon, and it has everything else. And then we have a button, which I think should be good. Sign up. Yeah, I think it should be good. Async storage is null. Okay, that means that our Supabase is using async storage, which has some native code. Whenever we install some packages that have native code, when we have pre-built our application, when we are using a custom build, here we're not using Expo Go, we are using a custom development build, that means that we need to rebuild our project. So let's go ahead and run npx expo pre-build. This will regenerate the configuration for the native side, and then we can do npx or npm run iOS. Is there something like that? iOS. Yes, it is. Now it's going to install the native dependencies, and then we're gonna be good to go. Let me check in the project that we did on Tuesday. I had created, how was the name of that project? It was polls voting. So in that application, we also used Supabase, and we used, I created a context provider for the authentication that was listening to the session and exporting like the user and whether it's authenticated or not. I will explain what it does in a second, but I think we're gonna use this one. So yeah, check out the notjust.dev/polls voting under the source provider of provider. And we're going to add it here in the resource, new folder, providers, right? Providers. And then of provider.tsx. So this provider, what it's doing is it first of all fetches the session, fetches the data about the user. It's also signing in anonymously. I think I'm gonna comment it out because I don't know if I want anonymous sign in. That's something that we can decide later. And another thing that it's doing, it's listening to changes, to updates. It's listening to changes. So if user logs in or if user signs out, it's going to listen and update the session. Now this session contains information about user session and user itself, and we are exporting from this file the session, user, and is authenticated from this provider. This provider allows us to not have to do this use effect and listeners and session like all over the place. We can simply use the hook useOf that we created here that will give us access to the context provider. And we are going to have access to the information about the user, so we can define if he should go on the off screen or on the home screen. So the first place where we're going to need that is going to be under our application layout. And here, let's do the following. Under the root layout, we first need to wrap it around our off provider. Like this. So the off provider wraps around the slot inside the root layout, and that means that all our screens will have access to the off provider itself, to the authentication data. So we need somewhere to decide if a user is not authenticated, then go ahead and redirect him to the home to the authentication screen. The problem is that right here, we cannot use the use of, because use of is not inside the of provider, like the root layout. Only components that are down here will be able to do use of. So maybe I can do I don't know, const providers root layout with providers, and this is another component that will render the provider and then render the root layout. And the root layout itself is going to not use the of provider because it's used here. It's simply gonna take the slot. But in the root layout, now we're gonna have access to the user information from use of. For example, is authenticated. And is authenticated, if we look there, it's going to be true if there is a user and if he is not anonymous. So we can check if there is no is authenticated, then return redirect from Expo router to the sign-in screen, to the slash, and our login screen is called login. So attempted to navigate before mounting the root layout. Oh, we cannot do here in the root layout. That means that we need, oh, maybe I need this way? No, I need to rethink it a bit. Because the slot was not mounted, we need the slot first to mount. And the off provider around the slot. Yeah, this one shouldn't be here. Yeah, look, I just need to have, I know. I just need to have this one here. So in the root layout, we simply provide data. Now in the tabs layout, that's where we need to guard the tabs. Like we shouldn't be allowed on the tab screen if we are not authenticated. So here we can do const user equal use of if not user but is authenticated. So if is not authenticated, then return redirect href/login. Now we get on the login screen. On the login screen, we can also define the layout because we want to put it in a stack, maybe with a title, underscore layout. In here, let's simply do off layout and return a stack initially. Export this one. So what's happening? Okay, we are on the login screen. And what we can do, we see some two inputs. Let's go ahead and add a bit of styles to them. So the first one that has the email, let's do style.input. And the same for the second one. Then input. Let's just style this input as background color white some padding, maybe 15. Let's do border radius 15, too much, 5. And yeah, that should be good. And the buttons, maybe I should do them on the same line, vertically spaced. But it doesn't matter. Buttons, it's already too much. So we have 2 input fields for the email and the password. These values are stored in a state, email and password. And then we have on this page 2 buttons, sign in and sign up. They both call a different method. So let's check what this method is doing. For the sign up, what's happening is we are simply calling Supabase sign up. And then we are just saying like, hey, there is an error message. For sign in, we are doing Supabase sign in with password, sending the same data here, and that's it. Before I actually create an account, as we are still in development, I'm going to go to my project settings, to the authentication. Not to the authentication, but to the, not to project setting, but to directly authentication. And here we have providers, all the authentication providers. By default, only email is enabled, but I want to deselect confirm email. That's going to allow me to create an account without having to confirm the email itself. So now I think we can go ahead and try to create an account. For example, DM at notjust.dev, very simple password, create sign up. We don't have any errors. We can go back and check if in our authentication, if there is a new user. And indeed, we have a new user with the email vadim.notjust.dev. Perfect. But because we are already authenticated, we don't want to stay on this login screen. We can do that either here, like if it's authenticated, redirect to home screen, but a better way would be to do similar to how we protected the layout in the tabs from unauthenticated users. We can do the same on this layout and say that, hey, if you are authenticated, then redirect to maybe the home screen. And the home screen will decide where next to redirect. So now we are automatically redirected here. You can also add a sign out button, maybe a profile page and so on. But for now, we are signed out and we are on the tab screen, because without being signed up, we wouldn't be on the tab screen. And in the auth provider here, we keep track of a user, session, and so on. So let's go ahead and do a git add, git commit, Supabase setup, and authentication. Perfect. And if I go ahead and this auth provider, and for example, before returning, I'm gonna console log session.user. Let's see what information do we have about the user. So we have a lot of info. I can go ahead and put it in the JSON formatter so that we can see it better. Process. We have like information about the application, when it was created, the user, the email, if it's confirmed or not, the identities, and also should have a ID, right? The ID. So user.id. Now, before we actually move to the next step, I think it's going to be a great moment to link all the data, for example, the accounts, the allocations and so on to link with the actual to this user. Because yeah, like locally we can assume that it's this user, but when we're gonna do the synchronization with the cloud, in the cloud we will need to know like, hey, this data, who does it belong to? So what we're gonna have to do is go into first database, go under schema. So we're gonna have to say account will have a user ID. So name is going to have a user underscore ID of type string. The same user ID we're gonna have to the allocations. Allocations will be created by a user. And we probably will add it to the account allocations as well, even though based on the account, we can decide, we can understand who it belongs to, but later it's going to be easier to create rules on who is allowed to, for example, update the account allocation or the allocation, only the user with this ID. So having this field here, we should also go to the model, for example, user ID, and we can say there is a text. Is it text? User underscore ID called user ID of type string. Let's think, should it be read only or stuff like that? Because after setting it, we shouldn't be able to change it, right? So let's see some in the model here. Yeah, I don't think we need text for it. I think we can use field. Read only, to make a field read only, to disallow changes to the field after the first creation. Yeah, I think we need no change. Because after we create the field, we shouldn't be able to change its owner or its user. So let's take this one and also add it to the account allocation. And make sure to include no change decorator and to the allocation as well. Now when we create all of them, but first we need to go ahead into the database schema and update the version to 4. This will reset our database. And now when we create accounts, we need to assign them to our user ID, because if we're not going to provide it, I think it should give us an error. Why it doesn't give us an error? Because we said that the user ID is not optional, like it's required. Is optional. how to save it? Column is required. Okay, I don't know. But we can go ahead and when creating an account, where is it? In our application, tabs, accounts, here, we need to have access to the user equal use of, we are taking it from the of, and creating an account, we're gonna assign it to account.userid is equal to user.id. But user can be null, so I'm gonna do a question mark here. The same thing should happen when creating an allocation. Allocation new, both when creating the new allocation itself, so new allocation dot user ID equal user dot ID, but we need to take the user here using the use of hook. And similar to this one, when we create items, item.userid is going to be user ID. Let's just double check if that's actually happening when we create a new one. For example, test 2, and go ahead in our components, account list item, these are accounts, and instead of name, do user ID. So first one is empty, the second one actually is a user ID, which maps exactly to the user ID of this, of my account. View user info, it's this ID with CE at the end, DCE at the end. Perfect, so that means that we're correctly creating them. Now, when we're gonna synchronize them with the cloud, we're gonna also in the cloud be able to only synchronize the data that belongs to this user, because in the same database, we're gonna have data from different users. Perfect, so that means that we can go ahead and commit these changes, git add, git commit -m, link data to users. Perfect. How's it going, guys? Why don't you use React Native CLI? Because you can do everything that you can do with React Native CLI in Expo with a lot of additional benefits, and it's way easier to work with and also to upgrade your application. So yeah, nowadays I always recommend using Expo because that's a better approach. If you have specific questions about that, please let me know, ask me. All right, so does that mean that we are ready for the next step? Actually, I don't think we are ready yet, because let's go ahead in our WatermelonDB in the synchronization. Let's check about the intro. So, one second, I'm just checking something. It never says this, but I understand that in order to have proper synchronization, and I'm gonna explain that in a second how everything is gonna work, I believe that we should actually add this created at and updated at columns to our models, because the synchronization is going to work based on these fields. We're gonna check like what are the items that were created after this period, like when last time I synchronized, or what are the items that were updated from the last time I synchronized. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and go into the documentation here, automatic create update tracking, and add these fields, because WatermelonDB will automatically track these fields. From our side, we just simply have to specify them first on our table schema. So let's go into the DB schema. And for example, for the account, I'm gonna do it at the top here. Created that, updated that. For allocations, I already have created that, but I'm also going to add the updated that. And the same thing for the account allocation. I already have created add, but I'm also going to add updated that. Now on the model, we need these two fields. Read only date created at. So let's go on the model for allocation. On the allocation, we already have a created at. I'm gonna add the updated at as well, and let's type it as date. Let's copy them from here and add them to the accounts. Like this, and make sure to import read only and date, and then to account allocations as well. So now all of them have created that, updated that, and we can go to the database schema and increase the version to with 1. And all of them should have proper created that, updated that, so it will allow the synchronization for the next step. Add new. Okay. Do you have Figma for this project? As you can see from my design, no, I don't. But I would need some help with designing it. Sumia, please don't spam. Can you explain, give me more details why you'd prefer a React Native CLI project? And yes, guys, so next step is going to be synchronization. We all waited for this moment. Give me just 1 second to bring a coffee, because I'm definitely gonna need it for the next step, and we are getting into it. So I'm gonna be back in 1 minute. All right, so I'm back. Let's continue. So, as I said, our next step is going to be the synchronization. We have all the data locally on the device in a SQLite database managed by WatermelonDB, and we want to synchronize this data with a cloud database. The cloud database we're going to create in Supabase. And then using the synchronization instruction from here, we're going to implement two things: the possibility to push data, to push changes to the cloud, and the possibility to pull changes to the cloud. So let's go ahead, and first we need to recreate our databases inside our Supabase project. So let's go to the table editor and let's start creating a new table. So it should match exactly our schema. So I'm going to open the schema and I'm going to start with accounts. Let's start with accounts. This is the table name. Let's leave enable row level security. This will enable security to allow all users, only owners of data, to read, update, and so on. This will make sure that some weird data, like we don't synchronize data between two different users. Now here, columns, we have ID, we have created add, which is a timestamp. Oh, that's interesting. If I need it as timestamp, I'm gonna check in a second. Then we have also updated add. So updated add. Make sure this is important. Make sure the names are the same. So let's also do timestamp. And we can also initialize it with now and say that this is not nullable. Let's add the next column for our account, which is the name of type string. So name of type. The type is going to be text for string. And it's also not nullable. The next one is going to be cap, which is a number. So it's going to be a float 4 because it's not going to be a large number. And it's also is nullable false. We can initialize it with 0, but we can leave it like this as well. Add column. Tab. So for tab is going to be the same, float 4, non-nullable. And lastly, we have user ID. And the user ID is going to be a foreign key. So let's press on foreign key here. And we are going to link this field, this user ID, to our auth schema. And there we're going to find the users table. So the field from our accounts is going to be user ID, and from auth users is going to be ID. Now they are linked together, and here it asks us what should happen if reference row is updated. No action, no action. Yeah, let's keep it like no action. And I think it shouldn't be nullable. I'm curious about the created at and updated at, if there should be timestamps or not. I'm gonna check from the blog from Benedict that showed how to do this. In his case, yeah, it's timestamp as well. So I hope it's gonna work like this. Okay, let's go ahead and click save, and this is our first table, accounts. Double check the field names and everything to match what you have here. Oh, you know what's the problem? By ID we created it as an integer, but it should be a string. So I'm gonna have to edit the table, and for ID I'm going to change it to UUID. Let's do save. Failed to update column. Does it mean that I need to recreate the whole table? Maybe. Yeah, my bad. Okay, create table, and let's start again. Make sure to follow the process. Accounts. The ID should be UUID. Here. Then we have created at, then we have updated at, which is also timestamp Z. Make sure it's timestamp Z, not just timestamp, because Z is for time zone as well. And we can default it to now. Next, we have name of type string, which is text. We can say that it's also required. Then we have cap of type float4, not nullable. Maybe we can default it to 0. I don't know. Then we have tab, also float4, 0, and non-nullable. And lastly, we have user ID. User ID, which we need to add a foreign key to the auth table, to the auth schema users table, where user ID is equal to ID. Save. Let's now save. It shouldn't be null. I'm gonna edit it. I think this one is editable. Save. Okay, perfect. So now the first table is ready. Let's go ahead and create the others as well. New table, and I'm gonna go with allocations. Allocations. For ID, again, we need the UUID. Created at. We also need updated at. Timestamp Z. Now and non-nullable. Then we have income as a number, and the income, I believe it can be a large number if your business is doing great. So this is also non-nullable. Maybe we can initialize it with 0 if it was not provided. And the user ID, similar to the other one, user ID, foreign key. Let's go ahead and select off. Users, where not ID, but user ID matches the user ID itself. Save, and let's make it non-nullable. Okay, this table I think is ready. And we need one more table. The last one here, we called it account allocations. Make sure to have the same name. ID. UUID, where is it? Why am not here? Updated that. Timestamp Z. Then it has account ID, it has a location ID, it has user ID, it links in all directions. And then amount and cap. Let's start with amount. It's a number. It's float 8. It's non-nullable. It can be initialized with 0 if it's not provided. And cap, it's also a float 4, initialized with 0 and is nullable. Come on. Now we need the three IDs towards account. So I'm gonna add all of them and then figure out allocation, and lastly user ID. Now let's go ahead and add 3 foreign keys for all of these IDs that are will link. First of all, with user ID, we already saw how to do it through auth users, and the user ID from here will link to the user ID there. Now let's save, and let's do the same for the account ID. But in this case, the account ID is going to be in the public schema because this is our table. So let's do accounts. So the account ID from this table is going to link to the ID from the accounts table. Save. Same thing for the allocations. The allocation ID from here is going to link to the ID from allocation table. Save. So we have 3 foreign keys for the 3 IDs we have here. Maybe we should also do is nullable like this to deselect the is nullable. Okay, think now we should be ready. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So hopefully we didn't make any mistakes. Let's create it. And yes, now we have 3 accounts. Whew. Now it's time for us to manage the data synchronization on the WatermelonDB to see how it actually works. For that, let's go ahead in the database, in the sync, and let's go through the documentation. So WatermelonDB is designed to handle the synchronization, but it's not doing like the synchronization for us. So what we need is we need to build it. It will give us some changes, and then we need to code our backend to respond to these changes. So that's the challenging part. Like we need to code a lot like on the backend side, which we're gonna have to do. So to implement synchronization between your client side and your server, you need to implement synchronization both on the front end and on the back end. On the front end, that's going to look something like this. So implementing synchronization on the front end. We need to pass 2 functions, pull changes and push changes, to the synchronize function. So let's go ahead and start working, and maybe as we go I'm going to explain more. So from the database, let's create a file sync.ts, and here we're going to need the synchronization from Watermelon sync. That's it. Yeah, WatermelonDB sync, and it's called synchronize. Now we create a function, a sync function, my sync engine, for example. So I'm going to have anything, and I think it's going to do a wait synchronize. Okay, so what this function is going to do, it's going to call the synchronize method from Watermelon. Here we need to specify some configuration. The 2 most important configuration for synchronization is pull changes, which is a function, pull changes, which is an async function, and push changes, which is also an async function. We also need to give it our database, our DB that we initialize here in database. So let's give here the database that we can import from this directory or from .index. The information that we're gonna receive for, maybe we should start with push changes, right? Let's focus on the push changes. Or it's not gonna tell us is missing. It's not gonna allow us without it. So yeah, let's then see what information we get there. So in the pull changes, we're gonna get some data from Watermelon. In the pull changes, we're gonna get some data. We should do something with this data by calling sync with Supabase. And at the end, we need to return something. We need to return the changes that happened and timestamp. So we can say that the changes right now is an empty object and timestamp is date.new date. I don't know. Not exactly sure. Let's transform it to a timestamp. So after we pull data from a Supabase, we're gonna return these changes here, but later we're gonna see how we can do that. Now for the push changes, this is where we take the local data and we push it to Supabase. In this case, we're gonna receive the changes and the last pulled at. We're gonna have to push changes to Supabase. So this is the bare bone, like what we have, like two things. Maybe we should also do migrations enabled version, but not sure if we need it now. And that's where we will enable like the Supabase, the interaction with Supabase. But as you can see, we are never calling this my synchronization. The thing is that it's up to us when to call synchronization. Let's export this function. Export sync function. My sync. I really don't know when to do this at this moment, so I'm just gonna add a button for now. I'm gonna add a button somewhere, maybe in the application, tabs. We have here a location. Can I have here header right with an icon? Expo icon. Refresh. Not here, right? That means that it should be in the index tag here, in the tabs allocation index, where we have a title allocation. We're also gonna have this header right, and I'm gonna remove it from here and make sure to import it as well. Come on. Cannot read property user of null. User of null. Where is that? In the context. In the providers context, user of null. Yeah, because here session user. I needed a question mark here. What's happening? Oh, I'm console logging the user. That is the problem. So now we have the refresh button there. So what I'm gonna do is whenever we press on that button, let's call the function on press. Let's call the function mySync that we import from the database synchronization. Let's try to press it and see what's happening. I don't know, but if we console log something there, for example, in sync console log pulling data, and then console log pushing data. If I press pulling data, and it's not pushing anything. Okay, something is happening. Pulling data. I'm wondering why pushing is not happening. Maybe because there are no changes. But if I add a new allocation and do save and update, yeah, now it's pulling and then pushing. Because if there are nothing to push, it simply will not call this method at all. So now we have a way to synchronize with the backend whenever we click on this button. It's going to first call this function and then this function. Now it's our job to take this migration, to take these changes and push it to to Supabase. Because if I go ahead and for the push changes, for local changes, and push them and console log, and then, for example, add a new allocation, 1, 2, 3, save, and then do press on this button, we're gonna see what this changes object contains. It's saying that there is some changes on the account allocation, and there are also changes on the with 2 objects created, because there are 2 account allocations. Then nothing for accounts, because created empty, deleted empty, updated empty. But for allocations, there is 1 object in the created. So there is 1 allocation created. So what that means that these changes is a simple JSON object with all the changes that happened in our database from the last moment we called the synchronization. Because now if I'm going to do it again, it's not going to even push the changes because it pushed it before. So to better understand this, to better understand this, I think we're gonna move to the backend because the first chapter in the backend is understanding the changes object. So the changes objects received in the pull changes and also in the push changes. This is an object with a very specific structure. The example is the following. It's an object and it has keys. The keys are the table names, for example, project, tasks, and so on. Then every table has 3 fields. an array of created objects, an array of updated objects, an array of only IDs for the objects that have been deleted from that table. So this structure of array we should understand, and we should always follow the same structure, because we are going to manually work with it to take an object like this and then update a database on Supabase. So what we're gonna do, for example, we're gonna loop through all the created, and we're gonna insert them in our Supabase database. Then we're gonna loop through all the updated, and we're gonna find the item with that ID, and we're gonna update the rest of the fields. Then we're gonna loop through all the IDs that are deleted, and we're gonna delete ourselves the data from the cloud. So that's how, from a high level perspective, it's going to work. So now that we understand that, how exactly is going to happen on Supabase? On Supabase, there are two ways to create functions. We need a function, or we need an API endpoint on Supabase that will receive these changes. Actually, we need two of them. We need one endpoint for pushing data, one endpoint for pulling data. These endpoints can be created in two ways. Either as an edge function. The edge function is similar to a JavaScript function that runs somewhere in the cloud. That would probably be much more developer friendly. However, for data intensive workloads like this, where we just have a lot of data, we need to parse it, write it, and so on, what we can do is we can use database functions that are right in the database, and we can call using Supabase. These are not a thing of Postgres. This is a thing of, not a thing of Supabase. This is a thing of Postgres. So it's very well documented. You can check about Postgres functions online and read more about them. And with Supabase, it's just easier to create them and later call them from our application. So what we can do, for example, is we can go to the home screen, to the database, and there we will find functions. The database functions, they are written in Postgres SQL, Postgres syntax. So this is the challenge. That's going to be hard, but we're gonna go for it. At the moment, we don't have any functions, so let's create our first database function. The name of the function is going to be, I think we just said that we want to first start with pushing. So let's do push. The schema where it lives, it's going to be in public. So tables made in the table editor will be public. Yeah. Return type. What should it return? I think it should return, it shouldn't return anything, because when we push changes, we just want to write to the database. We don't want anything back. So we're going to keep it void. The arguments, this is where we are going to receive the information. So our backend, if we look in the backend here, or if we look in our code, the push changes will have these changes and last pull that. Maybe only the changes should be as an argument of our push function. So changes, it's not going to be an integer, but it's going to be a JSON. So let's select JSON B, that's important. And also, I'm going to draw attention to the guide that Benedict wrote. If you're going to read it carefully, we're going to get at one point to this database synchronization. He created it not from the user interface, but directly with SQL. You can do that as well, but I show you a little bit different way. So I'm just gonna follow as well like what he did. For example, the property changes. He only has a property changes with JSON B. That's what I have here, changes, JSONB for the arguments. And then let's do the following. Let's have it as a hello world function, just to make sure it works. So I think what we will do is we can log something. To log something, let's do Supabase database functions logging Supabase doc. No, I'm gonna find the database function documentation, and there should be something about log. Debugging functions. We can do well, first of all, we need to say begin in the definition. We start writing the code begin and then end at the end. That's the begin here, that's the end here. Now we are gonna do raise logging message, log message, raise log. Will it work if I just do raise log hello world? Let's try like this. Confirm. Failed. Of course failed. Confirm. Yeah, I needed like semicolons at the end. So we have a database function. The next question is, how do we call this database function from our application? We do that by using Supabase RPC, which is called remote procedure controller or something like this. No, probably a different name. Now my brain is blanking. But we're gonna do that in push changes. So let's do await Supabase imported from our library dot RPC. Then we provide the name of a function, which is push. Then we are going to provide the arguments, which is going to be probably an object with the changes or just the changes. And I can look at the document at the example from Benedict. He did it here in the push changes. Yeah, he called the push with changes and then simply took the error if it happened. So let's try right now to make sure to call this push change. For that, we need some changes first. So I'm gonna do a new allocation and then I'm gonna press this button, pushing data. It shows us the changes, and if everything worked correctly, our push method, push database function should be created. To check that, let's go ahead in the logs. In the logs, in the Postgres, and what do we have there? Hello world, here it is. So that means that our function has been correctly called with hello world. Perfect. Now we need to go ahead and update our function in the database functions, push, edit function. and make sure that we receive the changes that we have here in the arguments changes. And based on those changes, we update our database. So again, I'm gonna look here. So creating a new profile. This is an example of how he created a new profile with a loop and so on. Let's try that. Let's try to copy the create profile and adjust it to our needs. I'm gonna copy it and I'm gonna, instead of raise log, I'm gonna have this create profile. Not profiles, but first accounts. Let's start by doing one thing. We are gonna synchronize the newly created accounts. So we have a for loop for new, let's call it new accounts. Inside, we are looking into the array elements of the changes that is our argument. Then we go into not profiles, but accounts. This is the table name. This is the table name from our schema. Remember, schema has accounts. So changes accounts then created, and changes accounts created. That's because this is the structure of the changes object. Table name with created, and there it's an array of created objects. Now, let's do it like this. Now we'll loop through them. We'll loop perform create profile. Where is create profile coming from? Perform create profile. What is this? It's only here. Perform create profile. Is this another function that he has? That's a bit weird, but I can look at in his source code. So let's check the GitHub, because create profile seems like another function. And I'm gonna look at Supabase migrations. Or let's do it like this. I know where else to look. I'm gonna look at the getting started guide of Supabase docs. Because in the getting started guide, there is an example of how to create and save that data in the table. Expo. SQL. We have here a public handle new user. Insert into public profiles values. Why does he have a separate function for that? Perform create profile. What's this perform even mean? Create profile view, this one. Nope. view. So yeah, not sure, but create profile. Where is it taken from? Here, create profile. Should I just instead do insert into and then the values and then return new? Maybe not even return. Yeah, we just need to do loop perform. Boom. Yeah, it's going to be create account. It's going to be create account. Then we're gonna access new account.id. Then user ID, we have it. What else do we have on the account itself? So accounts, new account for created at, updated at. Name, we're gonna have name, new account. Why is it accounts? It's new account should be. And instead of website, I'm gonna have cap and tab. So cap, and then tab here. Create account. From here we don't have two functions, the create account function and epoch to timestamp. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm not going to be able to save it. I'm going to copy this code into a separate file, just not to lose the code. Text file. Let's save it here for a second, because even if I'm going to try to save it, I don't think it will, because there is no ID. Field update database function. Field update given ID. Yeah, because new account should be declared at the top. Before begin, we need to define this as a variable. Come on. declare new account as JSON. Let's copy it, confirm. I still don't, oh, it worked, but I think it's going to fail because we don't yet have this create account function and the epoch to timestamp. The epoch to timestamp, these are two helper functions that Benedict created to help us map from the timestamp that WatermelonDB is keeping track on our locally with the timestamp from Postgres. So there are two functions, epoch to timestamp and the back one, timestamp to epoch. Instead of writing it manually, I'm gonna copy this call from Benedict and I'm gonna go into the SQL editor. By simply pasting this code here, I hope it's going to create them correctly. It says success, and now if I'm gonna go to database functions, now we see the two epoch to timestamp and the normal push. Lastly, we need the function that we're invoking there called, not this one, in the push, we have a function that we invoke, create account. So let's create a new function with a name create account that is going to receive what? Did they find it there? Profiles. Profiles. Okay, so this create profile functions has a lot of parameters like profile ID and so on, which means that that's what we should do here under the arguments. We need all the IDs that we're sending here, starting with ID of type UUID. Where is it? Come on. Then the second one is user ID, and the order should also be exactly the same. Which I'm not sure if it's very good, but anyway. So user ID, this is also I think a UUID. Yeah. UUID. Then we have name of type string. String or name. We need to remember the actual fields that we used in the dashboard for the table. So let's go into the table editor. In the accounts, maybe we can open the edit. So we see that the name is text. Name should be text. Then we have what? Cap. Cap should be float 4. And then tab also float 4. So cap tab, then we have created that and updated that and updated add, and they should be what? I'm gonna check here. Timestamp with time zone. So that means it's timestamp Z, and for updated that, timestamp Z. So do we have all of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when we call the function, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we have all of them. Now in the definition, I'm gonna look how it happened here. Why does it have retries? So much information. So let's try to take everything here. And also we need to say that this function return type is UUID. Then in the definition we have declare retries. Should we go with 6 retries? Let's try. Suffix text, where we are using the text, suffix text. Append a random string and try again. Oh, it's trying to change the slug, profile slug, but we don't have a slug, so I don't need the suffix altogether, which means that I don't need append a random string and try again. I actually don't need the retries. I don't need the this begin, which are no, this begin I need. But I don't need this one. I'm gonna mess it up so badly. Just look. I think end loop should be deleted. So insert into accounts. Let's do it like this. The following values: ID, then user ID, then name, then cap and tab, cap, tab, and created that, updated that. Why do we have server created that? I don't know. Values. The values from that we define above here. ID, user ID, and so on. So they will look similar to here. ID, user ID, name, or basically I'm gonna copy them. So we have 7 values here, 7 values here. Returning ID into new ID. Return new ID. Exception when unique violation, when I'm not gonna have this exception, I don't know. So we have begin, we have end at the end. Exception, I don't need it. Then we have insert into accounts these field values. I mean these fields, then these values. Returning ID into new ID, and at the end we just return this new ID from this function. It looks correct. Let's try to confirm. No. Syntax error at new ID. Here I think it should be declare. Declare near this should be let me check ChatGPT for a second. Oh, that's intense. Do you see any errors? Extra comma in the field. Updated that should not have an extra comma. So updated that should not have extra comma. Confirm. Yes, thank you ChatGPT. You were really good at this, man. From the first try. So now we have another function on the database layer that will receive a list of fields. We'll insert it there. So with these changes, I hope that creating a new account and then pushing should work. But let's test. Most probably it's not gonna work. But here we are gonna do test 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, add account, then go to allocation. Then we are going to press on this button. It's pushing data. Something happened. I don't know what. I'll just be naive and go to the accounts. Of course, there is nothing here because we don't even have permissions yet. But let's go to the logs and see what's happening there. So on the Postgres, something happened. Error. Syntax error. Is this for now? Postgres username. No, this was when I was trying to save it. Authorized, authenticated, authorized. How do I check the logs? Let's go back to, because the first thing I know what one problem might be, and definitely so, but anyway, like there might be a lot of problems. So I need to know, have a possibility to check the logs. But the most important problems is that now if we go to the accounts, they are and press on view policies, this is how we enable access to the data. By default, nobody is allowed to read and write anything. So let's create a policy and choose some templates. We're gonna want to enable insert for authenticated user only. Let's try to save this policy. Only authenticated users should be able to insert. Let's create a new one. We want to, but initially it's good, but okay, let's do update or delete based on user ID. And I'm gonna copy this command from line 7. So this will check the authentication ID to make sure that it matches the user ID. So let's save this policy. And the same can be done for update, but not with the email, but I'm gonna paste what I copied before, based also on user ID of the authenticated user. So let's save policy. So now we have 3 policies. And for this one, I can edit not on the title, which doesn't matter, but anyway. Okay, so now if I'm gonna go to the tables and try again to create a new account here, 2, 3, 4, 5, add account, back here, push data. What's happening? If I go to accounts, please, what if it's going to be there? Imagine, that would be so nice. So database. On our page here, can we do a console log error and then error? Maybe it's gonna return us here. For example, creating a new account. Error. No function matches the given name and argument types. You might need to add explicit type casts. Functions create account does not exist. Create account. Okay, it tells us very specific. The function create account, which is, we're gonna go to the database functions, create account. If I do edit function, the arguments are ID, UUID, so ID, text, then text. Oh, it's here, it's no, the cap and tab are sent as text, then timestamp with and 2 timestamps. Okay, I know what might be the problem. In the push, if I edit the function here, we are sending here the cap and tab, but we're not specifying that they should be numbers. I'm not sure why they are not numbers, but if I specify here float 4, will it work? Float 4, confirm. It updated. Let's try again. Let's go to accounts. Let's create one. Add account. Back here. Update. Pushing. Error. Invalid input syntax for type UUID. Oh boy. So my IDs are not actually UUIDs. That's a problem. That's a bit of a problem. I mean, we can make WatermelonDB use UUIDs, and I think that's what we should do. In the Watermelon database, there is override entity ID generator. Define a custom function. Set generator. Set generator. Is that what everyone did in the database function? Where is the database function? Lib watermelon. Set generator, yeah, I think that's what's happening there. Set generator, crypto random UUID. So yeah, let's also install Expo crypto, or maybe simply UUID. npx expo install Expo crypto, because we need UUIDs to match our database schema there. We're gonna import it in our database file index. And we also need to do set generator from, we need to import set generator. And we need to call it with crypto random UUID somewhere here. Cannot find more. Yeah, because we need to rerun it. Let's stop it. npx expo pre-build and npx expo iOS or npm run iOS. This will build again to have like this Expo crypto. What do you think, guys? Is this overly complicated? Because I feel that it's overly complicated. Maybe after you set it up, it's going to be easier, but even like updates, oh my god, no, it doesn't feel right. I don't know. That's my feeling at this moment. Lucas Leonardo, I'm an Next.js developer and I'm learning React Native. It's been challenging to choose a database, Realm, MongoDB, WatermelonDB, MKKV, async storage. I'm a bit confused about when to use each. Someone help. So the first things first. based on everything you specified there, Realm, Watermelon, MMKV, and async storage. These are two separate categories. The async storage and MMKV, this is a way to store data on the device. It's not a database. And what that means is if you're using them for managing and saving data, what you're going to end up doing, you're going to load all the data in memory of a phone, and then you're going to work on the JavaScript side by querying, filtering, and so on. This is perfectly fine for small use cases, for data that is not going to grow to thousands of rows. But as your application will go to, if you're handling data that can grow to thousands of rows, if you should do some filtering or some operations that usually are better on the database layer, like some calculations, in that case you need an actual database. So that's where Realm and WatermelonDB comes into play. We have a tutorial on Realm. It's the Trello clone. Is it the Trello clone? I think so. It's the Trello clone on this channel. And I felt that Realm is a bit more developer friendly and easier, but Realm is going to enforce the usage of MongoDB. So if you're a new project, that might be perfectly fine. MongoDB is a really powerful NoSQL database. So you can use Realm if you're new or if you're already, your project is using MongoDB. Now I'm playing with WatermelonDB, and the benefit of WatermelonDB, it's built on top of SQLite. So here, like, it doesn't enforce like MongoDB or something like that. So yeah, but as I'm saying, like, it's a bit overly complicated, at least for now. Let me see if there are any other questions. This live will be available after. Yes, it's going to be available after. Let me try to change in the schema the version so that we have now removing new data. So let's go into account and create a test 1, 2, add account. And now let's press on this button. Error. Details. It could refer to either a variable or a table hint. Column reference ID is ambiguous. Column reference ID. Think it's from the functions. Create account. That's most probably that's why he had like profile ID and so on, not just ID. Let me see, column name reference. ChatGPT, did it say anything? Yeah, it said exactly the same. Usage of variable or literal. The values closed ID and so on. Let me try to copy this SQL. Hopefully it's going to be correct. The only thing is here, like insert ID, UUID. Because we need this underscore. So I'm gonna open a new file here because I need to change some of the stuff, such as types. I need them to match what I already have. UUID, text, then real, numeric or real. timestamp, I think should be timestamp z. Why it doesn't show all the... Or better, I'm going to copy this code. I'm going to remove our existing function and create it again. Create function. I'm going to paste the code and I'm going to call it create account. It's going to return a UUID. And the arguments will be, let's start. It's going to be underscore ID, underscore ID, underscore user ID, underscore name, underscore cap, underscore tap, underscore created at, underscore updated at. The ID should be UUID, user ID, UUID, name, text, right? Cap, float 4, tap, float 4, created at timestamp z, timestamp z. Think that's it. And in the code itself, for the values, I'm gonna add here underscores. And what did ChatGPT said else? And missing return syntax. The return keyword is used, but depending on your SQL environment, it should be return new ID. What do I have? Return, yeah. Okay, let's try. Create. What's that name? Oh no. Don't tell me. I can change the name. Good. Now, let's try again. Accounts. Hey, 2, 3, add account. We're gonna go back to allocations and press this button. New row policy for table accounts. That's already good. That means that we get to, our code is correct, but we don't have access to it. We don't have, but why? Because our functions, for example, push, if we go into the, at the bottom, let me just check the policies and add a policy, a temporary policy. Insert to anyone. So I'm gonna do target anonymous as well. Save. For all users. For anyone. Delete me later. Save. So anyone can insert there. Let's try again. Add account. Come back. Do this. It's still that, but anyone can insert. Supabase migrations. Supabase database function. Accounts. Let's try to call directly the function. Where is it? Functions. Access control roles. Let's try to invoke the create account function when we press on some button, I don't know, just to see if it will work. So for example, in our application, tabs, I know, location, index, let's add here a button, title, test, on press, test, and here const test equal, I think, let's try to do const result equal await supabase dot rpc. In this case, I want to do create account, and the variables should be ID and so on. So will it be just a lot of variables like this, or here ID is going to be crypto, how is it called? Crypto random ID. Let's just do with just this. So because to see if it works, not if what it returns. So if I press test, what's happening? Test console log rs test. Okay, so we need all of them. Let's see if ChatGPT can give us give me a JavaScript object with the inputs for this function. Okay, that's good. It's going to be in the index here. So we have user, example name, cab. Okay. Let's try right now. Test. Details. Invalid input syntax for UUID. Okay, it also needs to be UID like this. Test. Okay, so it calls it, but then row level security policy for table accounts. Hey, table accounts allows it, but most probably our function create account security invoker. Yes, the person who invokes it, client API. Send help, please. Matheos, hello. Enable insert for anyone unknown. Authentication. Postgres. So this function is doing insert. Insert into accounts values. Create account. Supabase. Dropping and reacting. I tried select privilege for authenticated role, but once I granted privileges to the authenticated role into the table itself, oh, that was in the view. But I have it. I'm missing something stupid of policies. Insert. Let's just do all to all public. Save policy. Using true. Now it's gonna work here. No, it still doesn't work. Or, oh, it works, but the user ID just is not correct. So I believe it's going to work here because the user ID is correct. And update here. Error null. And I believe we're gonna have in the table editor in the accounts, we're gonna have an account. So the synchronization happened, but there is some issues with this one because it only worked when I did all public. Anyway, let's keep all public, but remember, like, this is not good for production. Like, we need to figure out like these policies and make sure that only insert is allowed only to authenticated users only. Now, if we go to database, we only synchronize the accounts. So if I'm gonna add account 1 and then account 2 and then synchronize, both of them should appear in our table here. So 1 and 2, perfect. But what if we go ahead and delete one of these accounts? So that's the next step actually. So in our database functions, when we have push, let's open the edit function. Let's open this one. So what we're doing right now is only handling the changes the account created from WatermelonDB. In the sync backend, we are only handling the created of one of our tables. We need to handle updated and deleted as well. Maybe we can try deleted first by going and checking what Benedict did. So for deleted, what he's doing, I remember, and he was he added a deleted at field, which makes like soft deletion, which is a better way of deleting when dealing with synchronization, because without soft deleting, there might be issues when the synchronization would not work. So that means that our data should also have a deleted at. I'm interested if he has it only on the backend or also on the front end as well. In the application source up, no, model, for example, for what did he have? Schema. He doesn't have deleted at the up level. He has it only on the database level. And that kind of makes sense, because locally we can just delete it completely, but for the synchronization purposes, remotely it should say, hey, it was deleted, so that these changes can be propagated to other devices and make sure it's deleted as well there. So I'm already lost what I was checking, but how does he change that here? And this is the pool. So for deleted, he's checking where is not null, and last modified at is more than TS. Okay, I get it. So that means that on our accounts, we're gonna have to go ahead and edit the table and add one more property, deleted at, which should also be a timestamp z. This one can be null, because if it's null, that means that the item is not deleted. So let's save. Now back to our function. This is the push function. So back here, this is for delete profiles. I'm gonna copy this part in my code after and loop. So using the changes data. So yeah, this I think is declaring a variable, and it's taking JSON array elements to text, probably. It's taking changes, then we don't need profiles, we need our accounts, and deleted. And it's saving it as deleted. Then it's calling update profile table set deleted at now last modified at. We don't have a last modified at. We can do updated at I think now from changes data where profiles.id equal changes data dot deleted based on this array. So now if I do confirm, if I go ahead in our table accounts, we're gonna have deleted at null. And if I go ahead here and say that I want to add one more new 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, let's make sure we have a little bit more. We should have one more here. if it worked. It didn't. What happened? Relation profiles does not exist. Account allocate. What? Profiles. What profiles? Is that in my function? Most probably. Oh yeah. It should be update accounts. Where accounts ID? Yeah. Confirm. Let's do one more. Okay, we have some of them. So if I'm gonna go ahead in accounts and do delete the 22 and 24 and then synchronize it, we see error null. We see one of them, the 24, is here, but 22 is not even here. Why? I don't know. But if I do now, wait, let's delete 23 and this 5, 4, and so on. Update 23 and this one. Okay. Oh yeah, I think that 23 was simply, yeah, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's synchronize. Do we have 1 to 6? Now let's try to remove 3 and 4 and 5. Allocations, update. 3, 4, and 5. If we look here, they have deleted add, which means that they were deleted. Okay, perfect. And later, when we will synchronize with our devices, we can check like if it's deleted. That means that we need to delete on our devices as well. So, database functions. Matthias, thank you very much. So under the push, edit function, new account, delete. But here it's not actually delete accounts. It's not actually update accounts because we are still deleting by updating. We never covered the updates. So remember that now we covered one table for created and deleted. We still have to cover the updated. Which I think I'm gonna skip because I want to go ahead and try to implement at least the pull endpoint. Because right now we're just pushing data to the cloud, but we're never pulling it back. So how do we do that? That would be another function on our database layer. That would be another function here called pull. The pull will return something because the pull should The pull endpoint expected response should return the changes and the timestamp. So it will, where is my return type? It's going to be a JSON B. It's going to receive something, probably the last pulled add, the schema version. Let me check what Benedict did. Last pulled add big int, default 0. So that's the only thing that we're gonna receive in the arguments. Last pulled add. Is, I don't know, int 8 a big integer? Maybe. But expected parameters, schema version and migration we're not covering now, so only these two things. But to make it compatible with later as well, we might add schema version here as an integer and the migration as a JSON B, because later we should also handle the migrations as well. So let's for the definition. What's happening here? We start with declare timestamp at the top. Declare underscore ts timestamp with time zone. Then we're also declaring the profiles. Profiles, or maybe in our case, accounts. Then we begin. And advent end. Inside the begin, we are doing to timestamp. Last pulled add, which is this one, divided by 1000. Then what we should do is we should, knowing the last, when was the last time that a client synchronizes, we should look in our database and get all the changes that happened in our remote database on Supabase cloud and return the changes so that the client can synchronize his local view. So let me copy all of this code and slowly adjust it for my use case. So it's going to be here. Let's open it up like this. In our case, we don't have profiles, we have accounts. Select build, okay, created. Yeah, created. Look, for created, like what we need to do is we need to return also an object like this. So we are, for the accounts, we are building an object that we will store later into the, not profiles, but underscore accounts. So this underscore account should have 3 fields: created, updated, and deleted. We're gonna handle all the, we're gonna say that nothing was created because all the created will also be included in the updated. Then for the updated, we are JSON build ID T. Where is the T coming from? Oh, we need to also create a view there. Oh my god, that's Why do we need a view for our table? Do you know? Create profile view. No, I'm not gonna take it from a view. I'm gonna take it directly from accounts table, from accounts, and let's have it as ACC. I don't know. So we have for ID, we're gonna use ACC ID. For the name, ACC name. But what fields do we need? ID, name, cap tab, cap, ACC cap. Created that and updated that. We're gonna leave like this, but we're gonna add the tab here. Then user ID is going to be the user ID from the table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's it. And filter where ACC deleted that is null because we don't want deleted that. And last modify that more than timestamp. More than the timestamp. Maybe updated at, because we are having updated at there. Then for the deleted, what we're doing here, account filter where account deleted at is not null, and account updated at is more than the timestamp we're comparing to into accounts. Then we are returning the changes. This is the changes. Where we have here accounts underscore accounts, then timestamp now and end. This should be everything to pull the data in the on the front end in the synchronization to pull the data from the Supabase. So here what we need to do is say const something equal await supabase.rpc pull, because the function is called pull, and we need to send there the last pulled at this last pulled at, maybe also the schema version, but maybe that's one for later. So let's do a response here to see what's going on. Data console log data. data, last pull that. We have changes in the data. So we just return changes as data.changes, and here timestamp data.timestamp. Let's see. For example, if I go here on my accounts, if I go on Supabase, under accounts, and I, let's say, add a new item for the same user ID. Oh, that's another thing that we need to take into consideration. Copy cell content. Insert row. From cloud. And with this user ID, save, and then come here and press on the synchronization. We see null because there is a possible handle. Promise rejection. Why cannot read changes of null? Because data is null. There might be an error. Console log error. Perhaps you meant code. Search for the function pool with parameter okay. Perhaps you meant to call the function public pool with migration schema. Yes, because we need to also specify here schema version and migration. If I do pull, database functions, pool, what does it have here? Oh, schema version is one without. My bad. User does not exist. Yeah, I made another mistake, probably here in the code of the pool. ACC user ID, user underscore ID. Save. It's like this. Missing from close entry for table T. What table T? I don't have a table T. Edit function. Oh, here is not T but ACC. ACC. Here as well, ACC. Confirm. It doesn't exist locally. This could be serious bug. Will create record instead. If this isn't there, should be checked when send created. Yeah. I think we need this send created as updated parameter because we are sending the created objects as updated, and this is on the synchronize. Here is the documentation. If your backend can differentiate between created and updated records, set this to true to suppress the warning. However, error reporting, okay, perfect. So on the synchronization, somewhere here we can say send created as updated true. So now if I check here, I see from the cloud, yes. And if I, for example, let's maybe to try to run it somewhere else, but I don't have it built. But if from the cloud, for example, I'm gonna go in accounts and delete the item 5, for example, not the item 5, but the item 6, by doing copy cell content and putting it here, or maybe doing today 90. Yeah, I think that's good. If I do that, come back here, I have a 6 here. If I do a refresh and go here, it's still here. Changes, accounts, created, deleted, it's an array. But why? Oh, I have some accounts, 6 is still here. Oh, it's too in the future. 17 or no? No, it's okay. Refresh. I don't know why it didn't work correctly. Nothing is deleted, but if I go here and let's say the one from the cloud, if I open it, today, will it update also the updated ad? 1858, save. The updated ad is updated ad, also updated. No, because it should be 19. Oh my god, 05. And now, because it has this updated ad, I believe the account from the cloud, if I do change data, it has this deleted. If I go here, it disappeared. Finally, yes. So, what can I say, guys? From the app to free ad account. If I go here and synchronize it, it should go here and add it in the database on Supabase. So we have this two-way synchronization between our application and the cloud, and from the cloud back to our application. But this is just for one of our table. So we need to follow the same thing. We need to go back to our database function. And for example, in the push, we're going to edit the function. And the same way as we have create accounts, delete accounts, and update accounts, here should be accounts, the same thing we should do for all of our tables. We should have not a separate function, but in the same push function, we should copy everything from here, paste it, and do the same for our second model, for the allocations, and then for the account allocations. And the same goes with a pool. We should go here, and the same way as we do here, we should do there as well. So it's quite intensive. Like I would definitely say that this is the like what I get out of it. Like it's quite intensive. I think it's overly complicated. It has a very good base. Like I understand that it's very performant. It's a very good structure, but probably it could be very much simplified, better documented, and some kind of a easier way to do all of this synchronization. But yeah, I understand all the challenges around it. So if you're interested, give it a try, hopefully to see some improvements. That was our tutorial. I'm gonna push all these changes to the GitHub so you can also have access to it. I'm super tired. I have like a crazy week. A lot of things have been happening this week. I started actually working on a new course. So I started recording, and also we had a live stream on Tuesday, a lot of meetings with our startup incubator founders. So I'm very happy today is Friday, very happy to finish the week. Happy to learn new stuff and to share it with you guys. And if you enjoy this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. My voice is already down and I'm gonna go and start my weekend. All right, thank you very much. Have a great weekend ahead.